This is the Ranch Horse Resource Podcast. I'm Rhonda, and I co-host this show along with my husband, Ty Van Norman. We're here to share practical horsemanship and roping insights, hopefully without overcomplicating it. This episode today is just a short look at what a smooth branding can look like when things are working right. It's true to the Great Basin style of heading and heeling calves, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I'm excited to get right into it because Ty has a few takeaways for us that can help smooth things out, whether you're on a seasoned horse or maybe your horse is just colt or is just learning. Ty, before we get into the tips and strategies, give us a visual of what's going on at a typical branding.
There's all kinds of different styles of heading and heeling. Around here, there's not a lot of standing shots. Everything's moving. Like as far as a header, the cattle are all in a big bunch. They might work some of the cattle out, but for the most part, most of the cattle are still in there. So as far as that goes, you're going to have to deal with cattle. So most of the time, everybody heading's trying to rope a calf on the edge of the herd so that you're not in there stirring the herd up. That'll have to come later. And that's a chance to maybe throw some different shots or whatever. It doesn't have to be super fancy. If people get to trying to throw too many fancy loops, then usually people are trying to get 250 plus calves done every day. So I don't know how well you're going to get invited back if you have to take standing shots at everything. So everything's moving here. So you get your calf necked. If you threw a long shot, get shorter. Because at the fire, a lot of times there'll be room for three teams of guys coming in there horseback with calves. But you might have to shoot the gap somewhere in there. If there's two other calves down and you have a little window to bring your calf through, get shorter. Get where you can control that calf. You're not going to wind up creaming the fire or knocking the ground crew down that are working on the other calves. And if not, just wait. I don't usually dally up. I'll just kind of wait and not let that calf choke, leave my rope loose, maybe follow that calf around if I have to a little bit, just set it up to where they're still getting some air. And then when we have a gap, make sure my heeler's ready. I don't start pulling that calf to the fire until that heeler's ready. And then when the heeler's ready, then we don't usually pull him into the fire at a walk. We get to trotting, or not usually loping, but trotting, get that calf to moving. It helps them to keep from choking. It gets a little bit of timing for that heeler to get a chance to heel the calf coming into the fire. And then everything's smooth and the calf's down. When you try to walk and pull, a lot of the times the calves fall back and they drag and they choke out. Or if you're on too much rope, it's not controlled either. Now you got your heeler going all over the place trying to get a shot at your calf.
Tell us the ideal situation for how people enjoy brandings out here in the Great Basin for the header bringing in the calf. What does that look like?
Header to head one, and we seem to work in pairs. Everybody pairs up with somebody in there. Not that it won't get switched around. Like there might be somebody just struggling getting a calf caught. Here, it's not those two guys only rope together and nobody else ropes their calf kind of deal. The neighbors we have around here aren't that strict, I guess. I don't know if that was ever a thing, but if there's a calf and the guy's just having hell heeling it, when that calf starts to stress out or get tired or something, there'll be two or three other guys. Like my heeler might leave to go heel that calf. And I don't mind that. That calf needs to get done. Our job is to get calves branded. It's not to practice roping. There's been times I really don't like the heel loop I threw and I caught a leg and I really don't like it. I would like to let it go and reset it because there was plenty of calf, but there's no calf at the fire. So I'll take that leg, and that way they're working on a calf while somebody else is catching one.
So the ideal situation is to sort of read the timing of the cattle at the fire. And
yep.
So the best thing to do is to get it there as smooth as possible.
Smooth as possible. Ideally, you'd be around the neck or neck and the front leg and two hind feet. That's ideal. The heeler would catch two hind feet. slide a little rope on both ends, the calf goes down, or they tail it down, everything's smooth. It's just the calf's, from the time that it's necked to the time that it's on the ground, maybe less than, I'm saying, and sometimes less than probably, 30 seconds in a lot of cases. A minute at the most, maybe, just depending on how much you had to wait. But an ideal branding is when they say, the irons are hot, go ahead and rope one. We've already got everybody that's their turn to head. They've got a target picked out, and if I can reach and rope one right off the herd, I can just pick him up and turn my horse and head to the fire with him. And whoever I'm roping with's probably going to be right behind me. And ideally, you'd have that calf down and knocked down. They'd be setting ropes pretty fast. The calves aren't on the ground very long. They're not caught. They're not roped very long, and they're not on the ground very long.
Ty, I know that we could talk endlessly about branding, but today's feature is just focused on heading and heeling, and mostly just heading. There'll be a few tips in here for the heeler, but mostly we're talking about strategies for how the header can handle the calf smoothly. With that in mind, throw us out some ideas.
Try not to choke them. I just try not to choke them. And if you have a dragger, I don't know, I've seen it time and time again. People just drag the sucker to the fire by the head, or it's setting down right off the bat. You're better off to just let it stand up, let that heeler heel it, and sometimes it's better just to turn it around, let it go back to the herd and let that heeler heel it, and then he can turn around and drag it. But especially with these English breeds, there's a chance that you could hurt them, as far as that goes. But if you've got lively calves and it's not too hot in the day, those calves they'll move their feet when they get roped. And, I would say 98% of the time, you're not going to have too many draggers in there. They're going to come to the fire, especially if you kind of keep the momentum up. They're caught and they're down and they're done. A lot of times, if you had to head one and wait, if you can just keep from dallying up and sitting there choking it, I pitch them some rope and I'll just follow them around. Even if they take me to the back of the herd, I'll just ease through there and let them not pull me. I'll just hold the rope in my hand, but I'll follow them around until we got an opening. And then once we got an opening, and a lot of times I just set it up so where they, I'll dally up and turn them around like I'm halter breaking a colt or something. I'll get them to turn around and then pop my turns and let them go, and keep them on the edge of the herd. Keep them kind of, they're getting to feel the rope and stuff. Pretty soon they settle down and they'll find a friend or a cow to hide by, and you can give them some air.
What advice can you give to the header about leaving the herd with the calf? At what speed should he go? When should he go?
Well, that depends on my heeler. So starting out, like irons are hot and you're headed in there, everybody's ready to rope. So you don't have to wait on a heeler because there's going to be somebody there with an open loop and ready to rope. Later on, as things get going, now you have multiple calves at the fire. There might not be a spot for you yet, and you've got one necked. So you're going to have to kind of wait for your turn. When I see my turn, I'm going to make sure my heeler's ready, or he's paying attention, or he's on the same page as me. And a lot of times they are, and a lot of times they'll come in there and help me start bringing that calf up out of the herd. They're going to get in position to get their quickest shot too. And then I'm going to head to that fire. And if the calf's not hanging back and dragging, I'm going to start trotting. I'd like to have that calf moving, and so does most anybody that heels. They want that calf, or around here anyways, they want that calf moving. So when they come tight, that calf is right at the fire, and it goes, ideally they rope 2 feet or a leg, it doesn't matter. I slide rope, turn my horse, and that calf's within 5 to 10 feet of the fire and the ground crew. And all they got to do is tail him down and set the ropes.
So when is the best time for the heeler to come in and
when he sees me start to take that calf, then he knows he can come in there and get in position, because he's going to help bring that calf out. He's going to actually help keep that calf from sitting back on the rope. Now, it's not every time. There's times where you're going to have to leave the fire with no heeler and just start pulling the calf to the fire. And a lot of times I'll take the first few steps walking and then try to get some momentum up if the calf will take it. And get it to moving, and someone will come in behind it and help keep it going. But you run the bigger risk of having it want to sit back and choke if you just turn and try to walk to the fire with the calf. If there's not some action behind it or a reason for it to come forward and come up the rope a little bit.
Oh, so talk to me if you have a healer on a green colt that's having maybe a trouble getting up there.
Yep. So I learned this a long time ago, myself riding colts. The best time for me to heal that calf is right on the edge of the herd, because that calf is still wanting to pull back to the herd, and they're usually on the end of the head rope. They're not squirting up it or diving back and forth. They're kind of in that's going to keep those hops the truest, or their hind feet the truest. If that header's got his rope tight and he's going to the fire, the farther away from that herd you get, and then the more that calf starts looking for somewhere else to be. Like he knows he can't get back to the herd, so he's maybe going to duck in behind you, or depending, or run up the side. If the calf will cooperate, I'll just keep it on the edge of the herd and kind of parallel the herd there and let that person swing with that colt, track that calf, get it healed, and then I'll take the calf to the fire. That colt's going to follow that rope that you've already thrown a lot easier than he's going to try to track that calf all the way to the branding trap. So I would say within the first 25 to 30 feet from the herd is the best time to get that calf caught, and maybe even shorter than that for somebody on a colt. The first 10 or 15 feet, that calf's going to still be wanting to pull to the herd, and his hind end's going to be traveling the truest it can if the header's paying attention. So I'll get that calf away from the herd enough to let the herd pull him back on the end of my rope as a header, and then I'll parallel that herd until that healer can get his rope thrown. And a lot of times whether they catch a leg or two legs, on a colt you're not really caring. You got ground crew. So if you can hold your rope and then just let that colt follow the calf and your rope back to the fire, and you know, the ground crew can set your rope if you caught a leg. It don't take too many times like that, and that colt gets more and more confidence about following that calf, and pretty soon now you can track that calf a little farther, and that colt will stay locked on and let you get your shot. But there at first, I think that's from my experience, that's the best time to be ready to rope. If you're the guy healing on that colt and you can see a spot opening up at the fire and your header's getting ready to go with it, I want to, even if he doesn't know about keeping it next to the herd, if he's just going to take off with it, I'm going to be right up there, be ready to rope. If I can start reading when someone's going to let a calf up, I'll be swinging my rope and be ready to get, as soon as he tightens that rope on that calf's head and starts to go, I know I've got 10 or 15 feet there where that calf's going to be kind of hanging back towards the herd, and he's going to be on that guy's end of the rope, and I won't have so much free running on that calf. But, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're on an older horse or a colt, and your colt's going to follow your rope a lot easier if it's already on the calf than if you're trying to swing and track. That calf, the farther it gets away from the herd, is going to get more uneven. Just for clarification, because of the way we brand here, head and heel and everything, too, like if you've roped them on the edge of the herd, most of the time I just hold my rope up in my hand. I don't dally and try to follow. That's, you hold your rope up, hold the rope up on their feet, and let that header take the calf to the fire. Especially on those colts, they'll follow that a lot better. If you're on a more experienced horse, you don't need to rope them at the fire. I mean, you can track in there, and then you know when you rope, and you can dally. You know exactly your distance or your spacing there to come tight, rope, dally, and either slide rope, or that's the other thing. The header's job is to get the calf to the fire. So if you need to talk to your healer, you're going to be hearing it from the ground crew. So you might want to talk to your healer if they're not getting the ideas. If they're just roping that calf, heeling it, and locking off, and now your calf, they're not letting you take the calf to the fire, and now you're 50, 60 feet from the fire, and the ground crew has to go work the calf that far away, then usually somebody's going to say something at these brandings. So if you're, the header's job is to get the calf to the fire. The healer's job is to heel the calf and lay it down at the fire, basically, or set it up so it's there for the ground crew to lay down.
So the idea is if you rope it right off the edge of the herd as the healer, if you rope it
Yep.
quite a ways before the fire, you're going to have to hold your heel
Yep.
loop up.
Follow your header. You got to follow your header. The calf, especially if the calf's moving and he's not choking, that header's going to go. He's going to take that calf to the fire. That's his job.
And then you don't dally
And
until
then you don't dally until you know you can either dally and run some rope and let that header bring that calf to the fire. But you don't stop that calf. On the heel end, you don't stop that calf until he's at the fire. That's the whole goal of the whole deal, is to make it easy on the ground crew, because you're the next guy down. And there's nothing more irritating than people roping calves, and you look up and they've roped him and he's 60 feet from the fire, and you've got to make 3 trips or whatever. Usually there's a crew there, but you've got other people that are getting to the fire. So now you got calves scattered all over the place.
give the header a tip for when things are getting a little out of control and he's worried that the calf is going to muck out the branding pot.
Well, if that's the case, then it might be one of those deals where you should have got shorter to begin with. I'll try to get stop short of the branding pot, I guess. If I got one running up the rope one way or the other, I'm going to try to stay closer to the herd if I have enough room to let that thing fight it enough to want to kind of hang back on the rope. So I don't want it dragging, but I don't want it just wheeling up through there. And a lot of times if I'm short enough, they'll run right past your horse and then right on by the fire. A lot of times what happens when the fire gets mucked out is it's like somebody towing a water skier. The boats, you on the horse stay in one spot and the calf wings out across there. Mm. So your horse's feet need to be changing directions too. I mean, sometimes it's being aware of where your horse is at too, and how you're pulling the calf helps. Most of the brandings here are in a branding trap of some kind, and sometimes the traps here are long and narrow, so you might not have enough room side to side. Everybody throws up panels, or they find a corner somewhere. We've had them where there's in a rock pile, or you have to cross a ditch right before you heel it or something like that. So terrain has a lot to do with how you handle stuff too, or how you can handle the cattle, for sure.
If you got something out of this and you want to take it just a bit further, go ahead and go on over to our website, www.ranchhorseresource.com, and go ahead and book a coaching call with Ty. If you want, you can even send us in a little clip of your branding video, and I bet you we can give you something you can get to work on right away. So who knows, maybe you can even level up at your next branding. And don't forget to tune in next week, because we're going to pick this right back up and talk through the healing side of branding. Until then, remember, if you ride prepared, your rope will prove it.